All right, so the 76ers just took their first lead in this series against the Atlanta Hawks. They're now up 2-1 after a 127-111 win tonight. I have a feeling Philadelphia's not going to fall behind Atlanta again. Don't get me wrong, Trae Young is a great basketball player, but Joel Embiid is just so dominant on the inside, even against a guy like Clint Capella. And the 76ers right now, they have a better bench. They've got a better top-heavy talent in terms of Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris up there. And they've got the defensive guys. They've got Matisse Thybulle. They've got Joel. They've got Ben Simmons. They've got all the pieces they need to really challenge this Hawks team. And tonight we saw a little bit of everything from the 76ers. But first off, I do want to address Dan Green got injured fairly early in the game. And he was seen late. I believe in the third quarter he had a boot on his right foot. So I'm not exactly sure when we'll see him again. They have some options on depth. Obviously, it's not just Dan Green. But Dan Green has been a fairly reliable two-way player for most teams that he's been on. He's won multiple championships with multiple different franchises because of his ability to transition and play on both sides of the ball so well. He's only averaging about 8 points per game, though, so far during the playoffs for Philadelphia. At least he was going into this game. So you think that maybe Korkmaz can replace that. Certainly tonight he came through, he had 14 points, so you have to feel somewhat comfortable with that transition, although you would obviously prefer to have Dan Green healthy. But we don't know when we'll see him again. The moments of this game that stuck out to me the most probably came from the late third quarter, and I'm going to try to pronounce his name, make sure I get it right, but the Hawks put in a fairly young player, I think he's only 20 years old, Onyekun Okungwu. Sorry about that. I'm not very good at pronouncing names, so I just need to look at the pronunciation here again. Onyekun Okungwu comes into the game, and he tries to guard Joel Embiid. This is towards the end of the third quarter. And this is a very young guy, but he gets stuck the task going against Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid just dominates him. I'm talking about maybe 2 defensive rebounds, an offensive rebound, and a bucket, all within the span of maybe just 30 seconds. So I feel bad for him drawing that assignment, but that's kind of what stuck out to me from this game was how dominant Joel Embiid was in that moment, in that period of time. I think we saw actually for most of the first 3 quarters. The fourth quarter was a little bit of a cold spurt from him because he went into the fourth quarter already having 21 points. He finished the game with 27, and Simmons was very juiced up in the second half as well. He was playing on fire. He came out and playing with a lot more energy. And he was scoring like they needed him to score. He scored 15 points through the first 3 quarters, 18 on the game. That's what they need from Ben Simmons. They need him to go out there. Because when you have Ben score 18, Tobias score over 20, Joel score almost 30, that's what's going to make them so good. Because we already know they're really good defensively. But when you can score 120 points, almost 130 points on offense, you're going to be very, very hard to stop. Like, that's the combination you need to match up against the Brooklyn Nets. You need to have that offense to get you 120 to 130 tonight while still having that very good defense. So they are in position well to compete with the Nets, assuming they're able to carry that forward. And this is not something that will just kind of die off here as wear and tear from the playoffs might diminish 76ers here because they do have players who tend to face injuries on that roster. But some other notes, Trae Young, only had 18 points entering the fourth quarter. He finished with 28 on the game, but really that was just a late push by the Hawks. And they never were really threatening the 76ers. The closest they might have gotten in the fourth quarter was maybe 14 points. So they had a little bit of a run, yes, but Philadelphia ends up pulling away and winning it fairly cleanly at the end anyways. The 76ers bench, which has been an issue for them at points throughout the season and also early in the playoffs, they finished the game with 35 points. Now, granted, it's partially because Korkmaz was playing more and Danny Green wasn't. But I'm sorry, they didn't finish the game with 35 points. They had 35 points through the first 3 quarters. They finished the game with 48. And again, if you can get that from your bench, I understand that Korkmaz will probably be starting next game because Dan Green got injured. But even 35 points from your bench is still pretty good. The Hawks had 32 from their bench. So they have basically 76ers through 3 quarters outscored the Hawks bench for the game. And that's what you need from that unit. So the 76ers at times, they have not gotten a lot of production out of those bench players. And if you have that, when you have Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid in your starting lineup, you've got to feel really good about where you're at. And of course, the guys who started the most, Dwight Howard, by the way, it's fantastic to see Dwight Howard playing basketball at the level he's been playing the past 2 years. There's some thought there for a little while that maybe he'd just be done in the NBA. Kind of went through, I don't want to say the same thing as Carmelo Anthony, but a little bit of the same phase where he was transitioning from being a star player to being more of a role player and a backup kind of guy who will come in and not give you 30 minutes per night. And there was a little while there people were wondering if he'd be able to make that move, but he did last year. It was great for the Lakers. He's come out and he's been great for Philadelphia. He still gives you the rim protection. And in 13 minutes tonight, 4 for 5, 12 points. One of those, he did attempt a 3-point shot. I think it was late in the third quarter, maybe early in the fourth. And it was a little bit, it was not the good shot. Let me just put it was not a good shot by Dwight. But at the same point, Philadelphia got the rebound and nailed the 3-pointer anyway. So, worked out in the end for them. Maxey didn't play a lot, but he got 4 points. Pretty efficient night for him. Thybulle was fantastic defensively. Like, this guy's a top 5 defensive player in the NBA, in my opinion, just from watching him play. I haven't looked at the numbers yet for that, but watching him, he is so good at reading the floor. If they can get him to be what he was tonight, where he's 3 or 4 for 7 points, if he can do that more often and be a little more consistent with that as they ramp up his minutes in future seasons, you're going to have a guy who's going to be an all-defensive caliber player. If he can get you 10, 11, 12 points per night, that's going to be phenomenal. He's going to be a huge asset for them moving forward. And just looking at the other guys who did well on the bench, obviously Korkmaz, I already mentioned, 14 points for him. So you have to feel really good. I feel like I said you have to feel really good for the 76ers a lot. That's kind of the phrase I've latched onto here during this video. But they do have to feel confident moving forward based on what they saw in this game. And frankly, the way I saw tonight, I'm not sure the 76ers are going to lose another game to the Hawks. I really don't know. It would take a great effort from Trae Young. And granted, the Hawks only made 26.1% of the three-pointers tonight. Meanwhile, Philadelphia made 47.6%. You can't count on the Hawks to shoot that lower percentage moving forward. But there's still a reasonable gap in points tonight. And the 76ers, their rotation changed a little bit. They had a lot of their guys off the court at the beginning of the fourth quarter, which is when the Hawks made a little bit of a run. And Philadelphia put their guys back in and solidified the win. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, I don't know that even if the Hawks had shot 35% from 3, I really don't know that they would have been in this game. So I think when you're looking at this right now, the Hawks are a good team. They're an up-and-coming team. Philadelphia is ready to win now. Like, Philadelphia is one of those teams right now. Them, the Bucks are in that conversation, even though they've been very shaky, obviously, through the first 3 games of the series, and the Nets are in that group right now. I don't think the 76ers are losing their game to the Hawks.